Yo, what up everybody? It's your boy Fitzmonk TV here, aka G133, and I want to do something a little bit different for this video. I think it's safe to say that the NBA has not seen this level of parity since the Big Three era in Boston all the way back in 2008. We've been living in the super team era for well over a decade now, with the Big Three in Boston to the Big Three in Miami to the Big Five in Golden State, etc, etc, etc. But now Kawhi Leonard brought balance back to the NBA by going to the LA Clippers, passing on the Toronto Raptors and the LA Lakers. And now, even though there's some heavy favorites on who's going to win the NBA championship next year, I think it's much more difficult now to have a clear-cut team out of all the rest. So in this video, I'm going to give you guys 10 legit contenders for the NBA championship next season. Just want to let you guys know that there are going to be teams that are going to have a much better chance than other teams on this list. But at the end of the day, these are all teams that I think will be in contention come playoff time at the end of the season. Alright, this is assuming no injuries, that all these teams stay fully healthy and do not make any major moves throughout the season. So without wasting any more time, let's get into the video. So first team, we got the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, in my opinion, would probably be the favorites coming out of the East if they had Kevin Durant healthy going into the season. But we know that Kevin Durant is going to miss all of next year recovering from his Achilles injury. This is going to leave Kyrie Irving to lead the Brooklyn Nets along with a very young core of players. I think the Brooklyn Nets will be a good mid-level team in the East, probably as high as a 4th seed up there. It's going to be interesting to see how Kyrie Irving leads this team on his own. Definitely once KD comes back, they'll definitely be a heavy favorite out in the East to come out and win championships. But until then, we'll have to see how Kyrie Irving leads this young core of players. We saw how he struggled and failed in Boston, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes this time in Brooklyn. Next up, we have the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz quietly had one of the best off seasons of all the NBA teams. They replaced Ricky Rubio, who signed with the Phoenix Suns, with a better point guard than Mike Conley, a top 10 point guard in my opinion. You also still have Rudy Gobert, who's one of the best defensive players in the league, and you have Donovan Mitchell entering his 3rd season, who's really coming into his own as a superstar. He'll definitely be in all-star contention out there in the West. You also have Brian Bogdanovic coming over from the Indiana Pacers, who can shoot the lights out, which will definitely make the Utah Jazz one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league this year, in my opinion. They'll definitely be a force to reckon with in the West, and definitely a tough out in the playoffs. Watch out for the Jazz. Next up, we have the Portland Trailblazers. You have to remember, last season, the Portland Trailblazers did make it to the Western Conference Finals. They did re-sign Damian Lillard to a max contract extension, keeping him in Portland long term, and him and CJ McCollum are one of the best shooting backcourts in the entire league. As you continue to have those two lead your team, the Portland Trailblazers will always be in contention. They did lose Enes Kanter to the Boston Celtics and Steph Curry to the Mavericks, but still, they do have Yusuf Nurkic coming back this season. They didn't have him in their playoff run last year, and a lot of people, some people believe that they may have been able to beat the Warriors if they had Yusuf Nurkic. I don't know about that, but still, having those 3 players together will continue to keep the Portland Trailblazers in contention in the West for years to come. Next up, we have the Houston Rockets. And the Houston Rockets didn't make any major moves this offseason. They tried to put all their chips into one barrel by trying to get Jimmy Butler from the 76ers, which I never thought that move would really work anyway. But still, they didn't make any major moves, unlike some of the other Western Conference teams. But yet, you still have James Harden, who will be in MVP contention every single season, and Chris Paul. And yes, we've heard the rumors about James Harden and Chris Paul and their relationship not being the best, but still, as long as those two can work it out on the court, the Rockets will always be a tough team to beat in the Western Conference. Next up, we have the Denver Nuggets. Some NBA experts have already predicted that the Denver Nuggets will be the #1 seed coming out of the Western Conference next year. Even though I disagree with that, the Nuggets are no team to be slept on. They have one of the youngest rosters in the NBA, and you saw how much noise they made in the playoffs last year. They went to a Game 7 in the second round against the Portland Trailblazers, and I personally believe they would have gave the Golden State some trouble in the Western Conference Finals. They also have their all-star center Jokic, and they re-signed Jamal Murray. Plus, their bench has a lot of depth, unlike some of the other teams in the Western Conference. This year, I do believe there'll be a high seed out in the West, and to see how far this young roster will go will be very, very interesting as they go against some of these other stacked teams in the Western Conference. Next up, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks have one of the best advantages of playing in the Eastern Conference, because definitely if they played in the West, I wouldn't give them much of a shot at all. But playing in the East is definitely to their advantage. You have Giannis coming off his MVP season, and I definitely think he'll be at the front of the line to get a second straight MVP this season. The Bucks did lose a couple good players this offseason. They did re-sign Chris Middleton, but they lost a very good shooting guard in Malcolm Brogdon to the Indiana Pacers. But this won't stop Giannis and the Bucks from continuing to dominate out in the East. I don't think they'll be the favorite like they were last season, but definitely they'll be in the top 3, and definitely they'll have a decent shot to come out of the East to the NBA Finals this year. Next up, we have Kemba Walker and the Boston Celtics. Kemba Walker will be replacing Kyrie Irving, because we saw Kyrie, he's with the Nets now, and Al Horford's with the 76ers. And Kemba Walker, he's one of the top 10 point guards in this league, arguably top 5. And I can believe he'll be a very good replacement for Kyrie. He won't bring the same amount of drama that Kyrie brought. And even though he takes a lot of shots, I feel like Brad Stevens will bounce back and make it work in that offense. I also hope that Gordon Hayward will bounce back from the poor season he had last year. And the whole X factor for the Celtics will definitely be Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown did, in my opinion, take a step back in their development because of Kyrie and Gordon Hayward being put back into the offense last season. But now, with Kyrie gone, I believe it's time for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to step up and be the faces of this franchise alongside Kemba. If those 3 players can work it out, being the top 3 scorers for this team and working together and reforming that Celtic identity, the Celtics will be just fine, and they will definitely have a chance to come out of the East and make it to the NBA Finals. Next up, we have the Golden State Warriors. I've been hearing a lot of nonsense about how the Warriors won't make the playoffs in the West. They're no longer a top team in the West just because they lost KD this offseason. Yes, the Warriors are going to take a little bit of a step back from what we've seen from them in the last 5 years, but the Warriors will be fine. Steph Curry will probably have one of the best offensive seasons that we've ever seen, especially since Klay will be out for at least the first half of the season. Steph Curry, in my opinion, will probably be your NBA MVP when it all comes down to it, and with D'Lo being right next to him, the Warriors will be fine. If Klay, Curry, and D'Lo can get their chemistry down by the end of the season, watch out for the Warriors in the Western Conference playoffs. And you never know, the Warriors could trade D'Lo for a big man, maybe Al Horford or somebody from the 76ers. You never know. If the Warriors do trade D'Lo for a big man, the Warriors will be just fine, and maybe they'll become one of the new favorites out there in the West by the end of the season. We'll just have to wait and see. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Lakers. I know there's a lot of Lakers fans that are unhappy that Kawhi didn't sign with the Lakers and he signed with the rival LA Clippers, but still, the Lakers have done a good job, in my opinion, of signing their bench with NBA vets like Danny Green, Avery Bradley, etc. You also have DeMarcus Cousins coming over from the Warriors, signing a 1-year, $3.5 million deal, which will be very good for them. You don't have to have DeMarcus Cousins be the all-star big he was with the Sacramento Kings, but if he can give you 15 points in that starting lineup, it will be just fine. Plus, LeBron's coming off an injury, and he didn't play in the playoffs last season, so he's going to have the most rest that he's ever had in his career. Plus, AD in his first year in LA, being with the team that he's wanted to play for so many years now, the Lakers are going to be just fine. And they might just be the favorites to come out of the West and win the NBA Finals this year. But we'll have to see what the Clippers have to say about that. Next up, we have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and the LA Clippers. Kawhi Leonard recently announced his decision to go sign with the LA Clippers, bringing alongside Paul George from the OKC Thunder in one of the biggest power moves that we've seen in a long time. The OKC Thunder got 5 first-round picks in exchange for Paul George. And yes, even though the Clippers had to give up a lot, they have 2 of the best players in this league going forward to play for them in the Battle of LA for the next half decade. I can't wait to see how these two do in LA together. And if I had to pick a team to come out of the West right now with a bullet struck to my head, I would pick the Clippers. I love their roster. They have a lot of length. They have very good defense, very good offense, and more depth. I would definitely pick the Clippers over the Lakers right now as the favorites to win the NBA championship next season. But I can't wait to see the Battle of LA this season and for years to come. Last but not least, we have the Philadelphia 76ers, who are my pick to come out of the Eastern Conference next season. They have some of the most depth out of all the teams in the entire league, and they took Al Horford from my Boston Celtics. Al Horford will be a very essential piece for this team because not only is he a great offensive player and a great defensive player, but I believe he can finally get Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons to step up and mature and become true NBA stars. If Ben Simmons comes back this season with any type of jumper at all, the 76ers will be fine. Don't forget, they just re-signed Tobias Harris to a long-term extension as well. The 76ers, this should be their year. As long as Joel Embiid can stay healthy, 76ers should be fine and are right now my pick to make it to the NBA Finals against the LA Clippers. But let me know in the comment section who you guys have making out of the East and the West and playing in next year's NBA Finals. Remember, right now, with all this hype, a lot can change. Injuries happen, trades could happen during the season, but the level of NBA parity that we have right now has not been seen in years. And it has me really excited for this upcoming NBA season. Let me know what you guys think of this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'll see you guys later. Have a great day, guys. Peace.